Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a brand new and beautiful day. Welcome to a new day in the rest of your life. And welcome to Exploring Sacred. This is your host, Denise Dana King Francisco. And it's great to have you with me. Wherever you happen to be around Grandmother Earth, the chat room is now open. And you are most welcome to join me in the chat room. And have conversation with me today. This morning, as I was getting ready for the day and out watering my gardens, I have a whole lot of gardens here in the Enchanted Forest. I have what I call my medicine garden, where I grow sweetgrass and blueberries and all those good kind of things. And I have my herb garden, and I have a Victorian garden and a Greek garden and a goddess garden, and the Delphina garden, which is just getting ready to blossom. The Delphina garden is named after Lily's mom, Delphina, and her love of flowers as well. And everything is just getting ready to pop once again and bloom once again. And as I was watering all of the gardens, I thought to myself, you know, Dana, this really has become part of your daily practice in the spring and the summer. And it is part of my practice. And what is that practice? The practice for me really is about the many ways that we connect with Creator, we connect with Spirit, our soul self, each and every day, and the many ways that all of us do that. And I thought, well, wouldn't that be fun to talk about this morning? Let's share some ideas about what our daily practices are like all around Grandmother Earth. And maybe there will be something that you haven't thought of or you've been wanting to try. And this might be the opportunity to make it part of your daily practice of connecting. Hey, oh my goodness, I'm just looking in the chat room. It is so good to see everybody. Yay, Carla Jo and Lily and Sonia, Laura Smith, my cousin Donna. Hey, it is great to have you in here, ladies. So yeah, it's like, what's the daily practice? I think it's really important to have a daily practice right now. The world's kind of nutty right at the moment. We've all kind of gone a little crazy in our own ways around Grandmother Earth. And so, you know, having a daily practice really is about maintaining balance and keeping in a space of wellness. And I think that Dominic is knocking on the door as he does sometimes. So we'll let him in. Welcome to a slice of my life, right? Having a cat and a dog in the same house. So daily practice, you know, watering the plants in the morning and watering them in the evening and being present. For me, watering those plants really is a time of meditation. It's a time to think about some things where I can clear my mind. And I get a lot of joy out of working with plants and growing flowers. And same sort of a thing when I'm with my horses. Oftentimes it feels like a practice when I'm brushing their hair and being in their energy. You know, they talk to us, our animals talk to us on so many levels. And that can also be considered a daily practice. But the first thing that I do, at least for myself in the morning, and those of you that have been in my home and you've seen the practice, are the number of candles that get lit. First and foremost, the candle for world peace and healing that's lit right off of the get-go in the morning there with I have a beautiful sculpture of St. Francis of Assisi, Brother Fire, and there's a candle in it. Mick Carlson did this sculpture. And I light that on behalf of world peace and healing. I think we're in the throes of that right now, and at the moment it's kind of a little ugly in places. But every morning, that's the first candle that I light. And then I move into my sacred space and I light a candle on behalf of all of my ancestors. And I thank them. Every morning I thank my ancestors for being present with me and being present within me. And I invite my illuminated ancestors, those that are resting in the land of the ancestors, to walk with me and to teach me and to remind me of the old ways that are needed this day. And then I have a special candle that I light for all of the prayerful intentions that I have in my life. And I dedicate this one to the Holy Mother. And so there's a lovely icon next to this candle and a photograph from St. Baume, France, there at the Cave of Mary Magdalene. One of the most amazing places I've ever been to on earth, there in the south of France, St. Baume. We have to take like a 50-mile hike, isn't it, Laura? Like a 50-mile hike to get up to the cave of Mary Magdalene, where she lived out her life and eventually passed away, and her relics, her bone relics, are there in the church. It's now a church in the cave. It's quite something. And so I have a photograph of her ascending with archangels, and being the good Catholic girl that I am, I have a red votive candle holder that I have a candle in. And I just lift up all the prayers on my heart and those that have been given me to lift up on behalf of others. And I lift them up to her, to the Mother. I send them to her for her care and her love. And then I light another candle in my beautiful party light candle holder here in my sanctuary. And I invite the presence of the Christ light to be in every ounce and every space of my home and of the enchanted forest, to let it be pervasive and loving and kind. Right. And then my final act in my daily practice is to acknowledge the four winds, the four directions, the Creator, the Great Spirit, Wakantanka, God, Allah. And all of that happens, and it happens really quite quickly because it's such a practice for me, but not a mindless practice. I'm very present with every candle that I light. Very present. I'm very conscious. And if there are prayers that I've been asked to give, I am very conscious of those prayers that I've been asked to lift up. That's part of my practice. And from there on, then I go to water the flowers. I'm up early, as you can tell, to get all of those things done. And every Sunday, my Sunday practice is that my house is completely smudged from top to bottom. Actually, from bottom to top. I start on the lower level of the house, and then the middle level of the house, and then the top level of the house. And depending on how I feel or how the mood or the spirit sways me, I might be smudging my home in cedar and sage. It might be frankincense and myrrh, or since I've discovered legacyicons.com, and I'm a huge fan of like French and Greek incense. Like this morning, just for the show, I have this wonderful Greek hand-rolled incense called Archangel St. Michael that's burning here in my sanctuary, my sacred space, permeating everything. But I really do believe it's all about being mindful and connecting. And so when I light that candle, and I've taken to using matches, Carla Jo has taught me some things about the importance of being that mindful in lighting the candles and snuffing out the candles and how we do that. And so that's part of the practice. And what about all of you? Donna, cousin Donna, saying her practice is coffee. And yet, Donna King, you can say all you want to say about that, but you are one of the most loving and kind, big-hearted people that I've ever met. And I'm so happy that we're related. Your spiritual practice is a practice that is a working practice. I have all of these rituals because it's in my blood and bones to have rituals. And ancestrally, there are lots of rituals in the blood and the bones. And so I have morning rituals that are my spiritual practice and the nurturing of the flowers and the plants. And then there are spiritual practices and works of goodness and kindness that are actual works, right? They're put into practice. And Donna, you represent that. And so many of you that I know in the chat room, you put your practice into practice. The rubber meets the road. The rubber meets the road. And so I remember having a great conversation with you, Donna, in October down there in Georgia, and just talking about all of the ways. And you just talk about it like it's just, the thing that you do, that you help people. When people call, you're there to help. You're there to pray. You're there. That's a practice. That's connecting with spirit and moving with that practice. And Janet, our beautiful friend over there in the UK, is talking about sending Reiki, self-Reiki and meditation at bedtime for her. Yeah, self-Reiki. It's a wonderful practice, the daily practice. Carla Jo is adding, a candle for those in need of healing and those in need of light is lit. Then I sit and enjoy the quiet with my cup of juice and a bagel. Yeah. Hey, Tara. Good morning, Del Marie. It's good to see everybody. It's Tara's birthday is coming up. Donna's saying, these days I could really benefit by picking up some of these rituals other than just watching the birds. Watching the birds, isn't that wonderful? That reminds me of St. Francis of Assisi. I have a practice whenever there's a storm coming. When I know that there's going to be high winds coming through the enchanted forest, we have a daily practice, and then we have practices here in the home when the need arises. And so when a storm is brewing up and it's coming across Lake Michigan, thank you, Kevin and Kelly Spencer, and everybody who lives there in Minnesota and Wisconsin for the storms that you sometimes send across. Oh, the big lake. I have a practice of offering some tobacco and taking a moment to speak to the spirit of the wind and the rain. And not only to speak, but to listen. I remember one time being out at my sister Barbara's place out on the reservation. Oh, the winds were kicking up. I mean, they were kicking up. And I said to Barbara, can't you talk to the spirit of the wind and slow this down for just a minute? We were trying to light a pipe, one of our chanupas. And Barb, just being Barb, she did exactly that. In the Lakota language, she spoke to the spirit of the wind. And the wind died down. And it wasn't as though she went into any extraordinary measures. It was the fact that she just had a conversation with Brother Wind, and Brother Wind responded to her request to slow down so that we could light our chanupas. And I said, well, how did you do that? That was really fast. And she said, I just talked to the spirit of the wind. And she never said, and hoped that the wind was going to respond. It was, well, I just talked to them, right? I just talked to them. I just talked to the spirit of. I offer that tobacco and I say, thank you for being gentle with all of the animals and all of the trees here in our forest. It reminds me of my cousin Vicky, because my cousin Vicky King does squirrel rescue. I mean, she mothers squirrels that are, taken out of trees by, when lumbering happens, or if a tree is knocked over by winds or what have you, everyone knows that they can call Vicky and she will help nurture those squirrels until they are ready to go out on their own. That's a practice. I mean, that's a practice of love made manifest and working out in the world. And for her, it can be a daily practice. I mean, she had some of those little darlings with her when we were all in Georgia in October. That's the practice of love, right? They call that a charismatic gift. The gifts of the Spirit, the gifts of the charismata. Charismata, those are active gifts. And one of the greatest gifts of the Spirit people forget about is the gift of love. But love in action. It's like compassion. Compassion is not something sedentary. Compassion is active. For some people, that is their daily practice, is to do one good thing. Barbara always says to me, Del, you know how she is. Barbara always says, I make sure I do one good thing every day. And I've been with her, oh my goodness, when we were coming through Red Shirt Table there on the res after Sundance. And there was somebody hitchhiking. And she looked at me and she said, I haven't done my one good thing for the day yet. And so she stopped, and this young person, he had a duffel bag with him, and he hopped in. And she said, where are you going? And, we took him as far as we were going. And she said, there, now I did my one good thing for today. She does this every day. That's her daily practice amongst many. A daily practice, I think, connects us to Creator, connects us to Spirit, to our ancestors, and I think it connects us to other people who are doing the same thing. But it connects to something within ourselves that, it just feels good, right? Let me check. Tara Rietberg is saying, I like to use the metal singing bowl I got at the sanctuary in California when we went to Mount Shasta. I let the vibration of the sound permeate the house. Oh, that was a good one, wasn't it, Tara, when we went to Mount Shasta in like 2008 or 2009? Wow, that was something. That was phenomenal. Laura's saying, your cousin can come and get all my squirrels and chipmunks. Oh, that's funny. Lily's saying, yeah, that's a good one. I do that too for storms. Yeah, just acknowledge that nature is alive. And Donna's saying, Laura Smith, she would love an abandoned chipmunk. Yeah, Vicky is so good with the animals. She is an animal whisperer. She certainly is. Carla Jo is sharing that when storms come along, she calls upon the Archangel Uriel, keeper of the winds, asking for protection for the buildings. If there are trees to fall, yes, that they not land on the buildings. Yes, I do the same thing. I always say, if there are old ones out there that need to come down, your time has come. Please don't fall on buildings or on any living being that will be injured. Yeah. Everything is alive. And sometimes in all the hecticness of everything going on, I think we can forget about the daily practice. And there are so many ways of doing it. Mine feels very Catholic in nature. So some people can look at all the candles in my house, and some people, it can be off-putting. And for others, they will literally say to me, well, you must have been raised Catholic. Look at all these candles. Right? It's what feels right and what connects you to. What connects you to being consciously awake and aware during a practice. If the practice is a daily walk, and a lot of people love to have a daily walk as their practice, being mindfully aware, awake and aware of what you're seeing, what you're smelling. When we're little, there are certain smells that we remember into our adulthood. And it wasn't until, oh my goodness, I was in my 50s, I realized that one of my favorite smells as a child is the smell of a cottonwood tree in the autumn. I was walking around and I could smell a smell that brought me back to about the age of 8 or 9. And I remember that smell must have been like the age of, actually earlier than that. It would have been first grade, so 6 years old. And it was a smell that I always smelled around my Aunt Mary Lou's house. And so when I smelled that smell, it reminds me of her, one of my favorite human beings of all time. And finally, at the age of like 50, I smelled it again along a trail that I was walking. And I asked somebody, what is that tree? It was a cottonwood tree that I was smelling in the autumn. Mindfully awake and aware. And in that awareness, it brought me, to some wonderful memories. But being awake and aware, I think, is probably the most important part of any daily practice. If it is about coffee, and anyone who knows me knows part of my daily practice is a really great cup of Java. I am so mindful the evening before when I'm preparing what will be my coffee the next day. I am really awake and aware to it. Sometimes I make some great combinations of things, to greet me in the next morning. But I'm very consciously aware when I'm pouring that coffee. It's part of a practice. Yeah. Have a great day, Laura. Yeah, Donna, because you spent that whole time with me down there at the farmstead. Good coffee, good conversation. Lots of ways of having a practice. Del Marie is sharing, at least one good deed a day keeps our spirit uplifted. Yeah, one good deed a day. That can be the entirety of a practice. Being available for people can be a practice. Taking a moment to read something uplifting can be a practice. I keep a lot of copies of the works of the White Eagle Lodge around, like in the guest bedroom on the lowest level. I have a lot of White Eagle books, the little books around with daily meditations, contemplations. So if somebody is staying here, there are lots of good things to read. You can just pick up and be inspired. Daily practice, stretching. Some people have a daily practice of yoga. It's about getting connected and starting the day or ending the day in that way. Many people have a practice of being grateful. They begin their day with gratitude rather than immediately pick up our smartphone or, look at Facebook or Instagram or any of those kind of things. Taking a moment to be grateful. That's a spiritual practice. Getting in touch with the spirit of gratitude. Good stuff. Having a spiritual practice of joy, right? Humor. Oh my goodness, I'll tell you something. One of the best things that I love about my family, my tioshpaye. Sometimes, Del Marie, I say to Barbara, it's the Wheatco tioshpaye, right? Because they're just crazy and kooky sometimes, my family out west. Wheatco tioshpaye, the crazy family. Crazy horse, his name is Tushonke Witko. Crazy horse, so. And that makes Barbara giggle. But one of the best things that I love about my family out west is that nothing is ever so serious that you can't laugh. I have been in ceremonies where the laughter has become part of the ceremony, and what we remember about ceremony is laughter. And you know this, Lily, and you know that, Tara, because you've been in NEBs and ceremonies where there has been tremendous laughter. And the first time that happened, because you really don't laugh a whole lot at Mass, Catholic Mass. You might giggle or snicker to yourself, but it's not usual that everybody at Mass is giggling and laughing and uproaring about something. And first time that happened, the whole NEB broke out in just uproarious laughter, probably because Linda Griezak was in there. But I looked at one of the elders and they said, it's some of the best laughter, or some of the best medicine in the whole world is laughter. You should laugh at least once a day, more than that. For some, making sure they laugh is part of the daily practice. Not to be so pious, not to be so serious about the daily practice, but to have some laughter and levity. Laughter is healing medicine. Hey, Katie Battle. Donna's saying cinnamon today. Oh, cinnamon coffee, yum. As it's rained on the garden, I can sit in silence and watch the birds. I love the smudging idea. Yeah, just a little. I'll send you some, cousin, and then you can pick. I'll send you some things. I'll send you a package, a care package. I'll put that in the mail to you. I do that for my sisters out west. I did that at the beginning of all this COVID hoop-de-doo, right? I knew that my sisters out west were going to be needing sweetgrass and sage and some cedar and maybe some chinchasha. I make my own now. Thank you, Claudia. White willow bark for my chanupa. And I packaged all of that together because I know that their spiritual practice is very important. So having the cedar and the sage and the sweetgrass and the tobacco and the white willow bark for their pipes was important. So I packaged all that up and I sent it out to them so that they, would have what they need. Right? I get joy in that. I love doing that. Hey, Marianne Molika. So, Marianne, down there in New Smyrna Beach, what's your daily practice? Do share. Katie, what's your practice? Del Marie is saying, headed to South Dakota and Wyoming in an hour to reconnect to the country smell and on to Devil's Tower for ceremony of World Day of Prayers. Oh, Chue, thank you for going there. Please keep all of us in your prayers up there at Greyhorn. Thank you for that. Yeah, coming up this weekend, everybody. World Peace and Prayer Day. Something Chief Arval Looking Horse began many, 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 many years ago. On the 21st. 20th and 21st, right? Whole weekend of, we need a whole weekend, not just one day. There's a practice you could get into the practice of every year on this weekend. Arval began this a long time ago, World Peace and Prayer Day. Being part of that, and this year it's up at Devil's Tower in Wyoming, also known as Greyhorn Butte. That can become a yearly practice. The daily practice, the yearly practice, the practice. The practice is connecting with soul, connecting with spirit, connecting with nature, wherever we find it. Wonderful practices. I think here in the West, we're remembering our practices. We're remembering. We're deciding that we need maybe something of a practice. Because that practice can keep us really centered, wonderfully centered. My goal for the summer, oh my goodness, Todd just built a 5-tiered garden terrace. You got to see this thing. You're not going to believe it when you come here. All by himself, 1,000 garden bricks. Imagine the terraces he built. It looks very Greek and Italian out the back, a wing off of the Greek garden. It's spectacular. Spectacular. So Marianne is saying cycling to the beach for her. That's part of her daily practice. Peace of the beach. The new book that I'm going to be publishing, Soul Minding, one of her spectacular photographs is going to be the wraparound cover for this book. And the book just keeps growing and becoming something that I never envisioned it becoming, but it's got a voice of its own and it continues to become. It's really quite something. Yeah. Yeah, it's Terry, you just got to see this thing. Todd was inspired, and his engineering Taurus mind just had a field day creating this terrace. Unbelievable. And it became, kind of really a practice for him. And we just had a huge dump truck load of dirt dropped off yesterday. It's that big. Daily practice, connecting to source, connecting to spirit, connecting to nature, touching that place within us that feels connected to something more than the daily news, social media, all the things that keep our mind a pile of mush. Having something that grounds us in the bigger picture. I have my morning practice. I have my evening practice before I go to bed. Before I go to sleep, I should say. I have a practice. I have a practice of gratitude in the evening, feeling grateful and, verbalizing that out loud or telepathically to Creator, whoever happens to be listening. And sometimes I do have a practice of smudging the bedroom before I go to sleep. If I've had a particularly stressful day, or there are just things going on in the world and you can feel, you ever feel like, before bedtime, smudging the bedroom at night is a good practice. And when I'm smudging the bedroom before we go to sleep into the dream time, typically I will smudge the bedroom with some cedar. To make it a really sacred space and chase the ookies away. Sometimes, particularly when you're walking a spiritual path or the path of a mystic, that would be me and many of you. Dream time, sleep time is oftentimes when things do try to creep in. Right? Things of the unkind nature, the sneaky nature. Things that you don't want in the bedroom when your body is resting. And I can usually feel it when something wicked this way comes, as they say. And if I know and I can feel something wicked this way is coming along, I prepare myself for sleep. I don't just sit by the door with a shotgun and hope that it passes by. I am proactive in my practice of preparing a sacred space for sleep. And so why would we do that? Well, it's the same reason that we burn like citronella candles during mosquito season. You don't want the mosquitoes flying around, and that citronella will send those mosquitoes packing. And if you have citronella with DEET, well, they really go packing, right? And so sometimes when you can feel something coming your way, just like those mosquitoes, sometimes just a little citronella will do. And sometimes we need a little citronella with a whole lot of DEET. Well, if I can feel that something in the force is a little askew, before I go to bed, I will use what I consider to be citronella with DEET, and that is some cedar. And I will smudge all the corners of the bedroom, all the way around, clearing it out, keeping spiritual mosquitoes at bay, keeping them at bay. That's a practice. Sometimes we have those practices too. Being mindfully aware that sometimes not all the kids on the playground, day or night, sometimes they're bullies, right? And so we have to be smart about it, wise about it. Katie is sharing, I try to take time during the day to sit outside at my home or listen to the rosary. I have to admit, I don't know if I'm committed as much as I should. When I am driving back and forth from work, I sort out the different things that happen during the week or the day. That's awesome. Oh, Carla Joe sharing about summer solstice. Summer solstice this Saturday, up before sunrise to welcome the sun. That's right. Welcome the sun. Summer solstice. That's a big day. World peace and healing at the summer solstice every year here on Turtle Island and all around the world. One year, I think it was, 4 years ago, I was in Glastonbury, England at solstice. And oh my goodness, there were people from around the world that gathered at the Chalice Well. I love the Chalice Well. And one of my favorite parts about that day that I remember gathering there on the solstice was that a bard arrived. And if you've not ever had the experience of experiencing a bard, oh my goodness. He was dressed. He looked like he stepped out of a Sherlock Holmes novel. He was dressed in that attire. And his voice was booming in a beautiful way. And he entered into the grounds and he began to sing poetry and talk in poetic cadence. Spectacular. His practice of bringing spirit in poetically. Same thing happens when you speak with Lori Bruno out in Salem, right? The practice of speaking in rhyme, poetry, prose. It was magnificent. Of all the things that happened there at Glastonbury, at the Chalice Well, at sunrise. Well, earlier in the day, we were at Stonehenge. That's how we began the day. And then at noon, we all gathered in Glastonbury at the well. Summer solstice at Stonehenge is quite spectacular. One of these days, I would really like to be there at Avebury Henge, which is one of my favorites. Wherever we happen to be, in our own backyard, out on our terrace, out on our deck, out on our patio, our daily practice is spectacular. Don't need to be at Stonehenge. We don't need to be anywhere other than present with wherever we are. And the beauty of it is we can make it whatever we want it to be, our daily practice. As simple, as ornate, as drawn out, but being present, awake, and aware is the key. At the ocean, I love being near the ocean. I mean, my childhood was spent at the ocean. And here I am, right, landlocked in the enchanted forest, but that's okay because Lake Michigan is only just, 40 minutes away from here. And that's a pretty magnificent ocean in and of itself. But being at the water and speaking to the spirits of the water, of the waves, pretty amazing. Surfing, I love to surf. It's been a few years since I surfed. I think the last time I went surfing was 2011 on Maui. There with Ipo. So for some people, surfing in the morning is their practice and being out there with the water and the spirit of the water and the moon, the fading of the moon and the sun coming up. or just having feet in the water, communing with the spirits of all of the animals that live in the water. For some people, the daily practice is watching Ampo Wichapki, Morning Star Woman, also known as Venus, rising in the eastern sky. That's a beautiful practice, and communing with the star relatives. What a lovely thing. The practice is what you make it, what you do with it, how you feel about it. If you have a practice that you've been practicing because you were just told that you needed to practice it by somebody and you have grown weary of it, or you never did like it anyway, you know what? It's okay to let those practices go. You can put those to rest and pick up a new one. But that's the daily practice that's been practiced in my family for generations, Dana. I can't let that go. Yes, you can. Let that go. If it is old, stale, you dread it, let that practice go and pick up something new. Maybe you would need a new practice of trance dance. I don't know, of yoga, of postures. Try something new. And you don't have to be perfect at it. That's why it's called a practice, a daily practice. We're all practicing it. But if you have a practice you've been doing just because everybody's been doing it in your family or whatever for so long, and you just drudge through it, put it to rest. Give gratitude for it. Thank you for serving me all these years. I'm on to something new. I'm going to have a new practice. Maybe it's flower bathing. You ever done a flower bath? Boy, that's quite something. Very South American. It's an astonishing practice, those flower baths. I did it once, Peruvian, by a Peruvian practitioner. That's a great practice. Marianne is saying, I love Venus. Carla Jo uses sound bells in the bedrooms at night. Marianne is saying, hell, hugging my puppies is very healing. Gazing into those big dark eyes. Oh my God, those puppies are adorable, Marianne. Yeah, it's a practice. I love this practice that my beautiful friend Kelly Spencer has. Whenever she sees my horses, when we go to visit the horses up the road, I love this. Kelly, I don't even know if Kelly recognizes that she does this. It's so ingrained in her to do it. She walks up to every one of my horses and she puts her forehead to their forehead. I have a photo, a spectacular photo of her doing this. That's a practice. They have this mind meld going on, especially she and Lectus. That's how she greets the horses. That's her practice. Forehead to forehead. Isn't that wonderful? For me, I light candles. And there's an old teaching, for those of you that like to light candles, there's an old teaching that says the moment that that candle is lit, or the moment that that matchstick or the Bic, whatever you're using, the moment that that fire, that light is ignited, spirit becomes present. Why? Because that fire is a spirit. That little flame on the end of your matchstick or your Bic lighter, and then at the end of your wick, that little tiny flame, or maybe a big flame, that is a spirit. It's the spirit of fire. The spirit of fire, and it's alive. Pita. Some people call it the spirit of Pita. P-I-T-A. Fire. And what you do the moment that flame spirit, that fire spirit is ignited. The words that you speak, the thoughts that you're thinking, the intentions that you're putting forward, it melds with, it's an alchemical reaction. Your thought, your intention, your prayer, your contemplation, your gratitude. Alchemy takes place between you and that flame. Isn't that marvelous? And Carla Joe, by the way, has got a course coming up in July at the School of Sacred Studies about the wheels of the season, the wheel of the season, seasons, plural. She's the one who taught me the importance of using a snuffer to blow out a candle, or, you know, how you do kind of spit between your thumb and your pointer finger, and you put the flame out that way. You don't just blow it out. Being mindful even of the way that you put that spirit of the fire to rest rather than just blow, right? I always just blew it out because I didn't have a cool snuffer. And now I have many of them because it's part of the practice then. Being mindful of lighting, igniting that flame, the words, the intentions, etc., that I put forward in the alchemy of being one with that flame, with my words and my thoughts, and then ultimately the way I extinguish my little ceremony with the flame. I love that. I love learning new things about practices. Donna is saying, I've lit them all this morning while you were speaking of yours and what and whom they are for. I love that. Have a great day, Marianne. I love that. Yeah, I keep all of my family members in my prayers every morning on my ancestral, those that are alive and those that are residing in the lands of the ancestors and those walking toward the illuminated ancestors. I light a candle for everybody in my blood and bones, and all whom they love, and all whom they love. Hey, Janet. She's saying, I'm too scared to use my fingers. The nurse that you are. That is something else. Nurses see everything. They do everything. You are funny, Janet. Yeah. The daily practice. So maybe as something fun to do, because we can, I'm going to find out what time the ceremony begins there. In fact, I think I have it on my calendar, actually. Well, let me just have a little look-see while we're all gathered, because it's not quite the top of the hour. I'm just going to have a little look here at what time the gathering begins this weekend. Oh, gosh. My son Dane and his lady love Melissa are going down to North Carolina on Saturday. They're going to Asheville for a week. They're staying in the mountains. And he's saying there's supposed to be rain every day while he's down there. Okay, so Saturday, everybody, is when the prayer ceremony happens at Greyhorn Butte. Greyhorn Butte is another name, the first name for what we now call Devil's Tower. So that ceremony is going on during the day on Saturday. And so maybe you might make it part of your practice this year at some point on Saturday to maybe just tap into, feel into, maybe light a candle, maybe light some sage or some cedar, and to just sit a moment and feel with your spirit belonging to the ceremonies that'll be going on there at Greyhorn, the pipe ceremony. For me, I will be lighting my chanupa, my pipe. I won't be at Greyhorn, obviously. I am here in the Enchanted Forest. But I will connect mentally, emotionally, spiritually. With all of the ceremonies going on, it doesn't have to be a certain time. It'll be during the day. Spirit is not so much concerned about a time, right? As it is gathering. And I will light my pipe. My chanupa will be brought out in a good way. And Todd's will as well. And we will be sitting with in that way, adding our prayers for world peace and healing for everybody, every living thing. And so maybe in your own way, wherever you happen to be in your practice on Saturday, we can join a larger practice. We can bring our practice and add it too. If Marianne is at the beach, she can stand there with her toes in the sand and in the water and spiritually check in and add her love, her active compassion to the larger prayer. That might be something fun. And Donna, I don't know where in the world you will be on Saturday because you are a flight attendant and you do fly off to different places. But wherever we happen to be, and here's the great thing about being consciously awake and aware of adding your prayers to a larger yearly practice. Taking the time to not just, add yourself, to feel, to take a moment to feel. If you don't know what Greyhorn Butte looks like or Devil's Tower looks like, well, you can Google that so you can have a thought or a feeling of what that looks like. You can look at photos of Chief Arval looking horse, Ivan looking horse, and then bring yourself spiritually to that place and add your prayers. And then feel it. Because there's an alchemy when we add our practice to a larger practice. There's alchemy. Feel the alchemy. Thank you, Del, for weighing in on this. We all need to pray for all that is happening. Light up the world with love, compassion, no matter what you're doing. Take a minute or two to pray for all. That's right, to feel it. And don't edit what it is that you're feeling. Maybe in that moment you are hearing drums. Maybe in that moment you are smelling sage or sweetgrass or cedar or pipes being lit. Allow yourself to feel the reciprocal energy, the alchemical energy, because as we give, we know that we receive. We all know that. If we are adding our prayer to a larger prayer, there is reciprocity that happens. Allow for that and enjoy that. Janet, you're over there in the UK. You may tap into Butte, to Greyhorn Butte. And over there in the UK, you may smell the sage or the cedar, the sweetgrass. You may hear the drums, the community drums. You may hear what's being spoken by our elders. Let that happen. Enjoy that experience. Enjoy the reciprocity. It's a beautiful thing. She said, not working here in the rain or in the South Georgia heat. Yeah, it's hot. I was speaking to Danielle last night. She called me. And she said it is hot down there in Pulaski County, Georgia. With that, everybody, thank you for having a daily practice, no matter what it is. And thank you for having the practice of being good people with kind hearts, with active compassion. That's a wonderful. We are in our own self a practice. Who we are is a practice. The way we walk in the world, the way we speak, the way we act is a practice. And what we do beyond that is an extension of the practice of being who we are. So get out there, light up the world. Remember this Saturday, tap in to all the goodness going on there at Devil's Tower in Wyoming, Greyhorn Butte. With that, everybody, blessings be. A blessing you are. Peace out, everybody.